Before I took up my post at Duke University, I was fortunate enough to make many short trips to the United States from the UK. And very often on the first night of each visit, I'd find myself in a hotel room, awake with jet lag around 3 in the morning. And I'd often try to find something interesting on TV. At that time of night, as far as I can tell, you've got basically two options. You can go for extremely conservative preachers, offering their latest 5-step program for a prosperous life, or you can have ultra-toned models selling their latest weight loss programs, which I suppose go to show that the only people actually awake in America at 3 in the morning are overweight Christians. But in the midst of all this guaranteed salvation and instant flab reduction, occasionally you'll find a third type of nighttime show, and it's turned into a genre all of its own. And I'm thinking of the police chase, where you, the viewer, get to join a police squad and pursue a criminal for about 20 minutes. Quite why this should be so appealing at 3 in the morning is a bit of a mystery, but there we are. And often it ends up at night with you in a helicopter, and in front of you a giant searchlight aimed at the victim on the ground. The offender, of course, does all he can to dodge the glare of the searchlight, dashing this way and that, darting under hedges, between trees, under cars, over walls. But eventually he ends up with nowhere to go and frozen to the spot, exposed and condemned. Like the hedgehog caught by the headlights on a driveway, he curls up tight on the ground, tight against the light. For whoever does evil hates the light and does not come to the light, lest their deeds should be exposed. Now, I expect in some cases the offender's been living in the dark for some time, perhaps months, years. Criminals tend to be photophobic in every sense. Night is the time to steal, the time to break out of jail. Most crime is committed in the dark, and most planning of crime too. The dark setting of crime is glamorized in 100 movies. The murky alley, the shady street corner, the stark basement, a single overhead bulb in an endless poker game. Godfather figures sucking at spaghetti in subdued restaurant backrooms, mumbling sotto voce. This is the shadowy world criminals like to inhabit, where evil deeds breed evil deeds. The underground world, the underworld, the world most of us never see, the world that shuns the light of day, that hides from the white light of justice. And it's got its own kind of attraction for those who live in it, this underworld. They learn to like the dark, enjoy it even. And people love darkness rather than light. John tells us after Nicodemus comes to see Jesus at night. Now, of course, all this is 1,000 miles from anything we'd ever get up to, and the TV channels want to reassure you about that. That's why they put you behind the searchlight in the helicopter, never in front of it. That's where they want you to be, behind the light, shining it on others. Training a spotlight on some serial offender will make you feel very much better and very comforted. Let's face it, at 3 in the morning, as an overweight Christian, you'll need all the comfort you can get. This is the way so much news commentary gets our attention. It divides the world neatly into innocent and guilty. And we, the innocent viewer, get a chance to turn the spotlight on and convict the guilty. So we're made to side with Bill O'Reilly against the Liberals, or Bill Maher against Trump, or whatever. Whichever way, we're always in the helicopter behind the searchlight, and the others are the ones need exposing. And who can deny there's a certain frisson of satisfaction when we occupy the moral high ground, or moral high air, so to speak. We can hover above the guilty, exposing and condemning those on the ground. When the corrupt banker gets his comeuppance, when the mugger gets sentenced. For everyone who does evil hates the light and does not come to the light, lest their deeds should be exposed. John tells us, as the enemies of God are gradually uncovered in his gospel. So it's all very satisfying until, of course, someone nudges the searchlight and it catches our faces. And then it all feels a little different. However well we put on the innocent front, most of us are photophobic at some level, if only very deep down. Most of us fear the light. And to be honest, I used to feel this way whenever I visited Wheaton. This is my 5th visit, I think, and I always thought of Wheaton as a place bathed in light, gleaming with brightness. A place where it's always sunny, except perhaps for today. A place of glistening white pillars and shining white perfect teeth. Lustrous intellects and luminous smiles. A place where people look depressingly happy most of the time. And all of this used to make me feel very uneasy, anxious that I'd be exposed as the serial sinner I am. Until I soon found out a lot of people here feel the same way. We all fear exposure. Why is it the research has shown that one of the commonest fears in academic colleges is being found out? It's nearly always at the top of the list. We may have impeccable qualifications, whether we're faculty or student. We've got into Wheaton fair and square, but somehow there's a lurking sense that you've been bluffing your way through too many interviews, name-dropping in too many seminars. Everyone seems to think you're much smarter than you really are. It's only a matter of time before someone's going to call your bluff, expose you with the terrifying searchlight of their superior brilliance. Academic photophobia. Why is it that one of the commonest dreams people have is the one about being caught naked in public? You're acting in the high school play, delivering the commencement address, reading in chapel, preaching. The spotlight isn't you, but you suddenly realize you're without the mighty protection of your Calvin Kleins or Hanes or whatever. What does all this say? Why do so many of us have such an intense fear of surveillance in public places? Those little cameras in the gas station, the library, the street corner, the shopping mall. Why are we so worried about them if we're not doing anything illegal? Why do security cameras make us feel so insecure? What does all this say? What's the fear? Presumably, we fear because we know there'll always something in us to condemn, and there'll always be someone to do the condemning. So we prefer the fragile security of darkness, burying vast areas of our lives. We learn how to curl up like hedgehogs in the dark, tight against the light. And of course, this is even worse when the light happens to be the light of God. Everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed, we're told after Nicodemus meets Jesus, the Son of God. God. This passage isn't simply a meditation on the psychology of denial. It's about what happens when God gets to work, when the searchlight of God searches us out. Now things are far more uncomfortable. We can always hide from others, but not from God. Not from the God who sees all and knows all. Our violent mood swings, our inbuilt laziness, the shady agreements, the white lies, the words we never dare utter, the thoughts we never let out. It's all known to God, open to his gaze. All visible to the all-seeing God, the God to whom all hearts are open and from whom no secrets are hid. There's no bush we can dart under, no wall to hide behind, no hiding place we can scuttle to be safe with our secrets. It's all open to God, to the searchlight of God, to the searching light of God. And as the spiritual has it, it causes me to tremble. And Nicodemus, too, no doubt. Nicodemus, who peeps out of his own darkness at night. He's puzzled by Jesus, curious about these miracles, wanting to know more, but probably knowing there are some parts of his life he'd rather keep to himself. Now he's met by God's light direct. God's light in one person. God's searing light, focused right on him. Now he finds his own night was darker than he thought. He can't cope with these strange words about having to go into a womb and be born a second time and having to believe in this Jesus. Whoever does not believe stands condemned already because he has not believed in the name of God's one and only Son. So Nicodemus slips out of the story, slips back into the night. What else can he do? When met by God's only Son, God's searchlight focused on him, what else can we do except curl up in our own darkness, exposed and condemned, tight against the light. But wait, what is this searching light? The light that searches the darkness and searches our darkness. Suppose we got it wrong. What if the light is not basically to be feared? What if the light doesn't have to be shunned? What if the contrasts in our passage really mean something? Did you hear them? We love darkness and hate the light of God, but God so loved the world, including those in darkness. We love darkness and can't believe we could be anything other than condemned, but God so loved the world that he sent his Son not to condemn the world, but that the world might be saved through him. What if this light were searching us, but not ultimately condemn us, but to rescue us from our own darkness? Well, we've heard that before, and it's a nice thought. But how can it possibly happen if we love darkness rather than light? How can this Jesus rescue us if we're always curled up in our own darkness? As Luther had it about sin, incurvatus in se, curled in on ourselves, tight against the light. How can he rescue us? Only if he enters that darkness himself. It's hinted here in the passage in this coded language about the Son of Man being lifted up, an allusion, of course, to Good Friday. Yes, Nicodemus may have slipped into the dark, but Jesus doesn't leave him there. Yes, Judas goes out into the night, but Jesus doesn't abandon him there. Jesus goes out into that same night. He numbers himself with the guilty. He's searched out in the garden with searchlights at night. He's condemned in a court by the high priest at night. And he takes that final journey into the very pit of human darkness where evil deeds breed evil deeds. At Golgotha, he's condemned with the condemned, accused with the accused, with those we love to expose and convict: the serial offender, the child molester. With those we want to shove into the darkness, the mentally ill curled up on a street corner down the road. He journeys to those parts of ourselves we'd rather forget at Wheaton College, behind the gleam and shine. The places we spend our lives trying to keep tight. He specializes in going to those places. There he goes into the unspeakable depth we've created for ourselves by shutting out God. There he goes. And there was darkness over the whole land. There are no depths to which we can plunge that God's light has not already shone. The light of forgiveness, the light of rescue, the light of love. And if that's true, folks, if that's true, there's no need to fear being exposed by this light. No need to live in some underworld. No need to curl up tight against the light. Now we can delight in the light. That's why John ends this passage not in the dark, but by telling us what it means to come into the light, as he puts it. Whoever lives by the truth comes into the light, so that it may be seen plainly that what they do has been done through God. I know, it's an odd expression, and there are many odd expressions in John's gospel, by the way. Perhaps the best way to think of it comes from music. There's a composer, a French composer called Claude Debussy, who once said he wanted his music to sound as if it were lit from behind. Every note transparent to every note behind it. Every harmony translucent to the ones behind. It's as if a huge warm light were shining behind the music. And that's what it sounds like, lit from behind. And that's what will happen if we come into the light. Now we're standing not behind the searchlight and not underneath it. We're being lit from behind. I think of a young man I heard speak not so long ago about an amazing ministry he set up in Durham, North Carolina, where I work quite a lot of the time, with young people at risk. He talked about the way those who reject it at home or school find a kind of welcome there they've never experienced before, the kind of unconditional welcome of the Son of God. Do you know, there was something about him as he spoke, something we could all see plainly, an unhurried confidence. He's lit from behind. I think of an elderly woman who used to clean my office when I worked in Cambridge. She didn't say much, but in her endless gestures of concern for me, she spoke volumes. She prayed every day for me and everyone else in that college. There will be many people like that right here in Wheaton. And there's something about them. They're lit from behind. And perhaps we might dare to think of ourselves this morning, where the searchlight of God has come to search us out again. Having heard his voice, having heard the call to trust him again, we can leave this chapel without fear. And outside, even in the snow, it will be as if the sun is shining from behind us, which of course he is. Amen.